Humorism, or humoralism, was a system of medicine detailing the makeup and workings of the human body, adopted by ancient Greek and Roman physicians and philosophers, positing that an excess or deficiency of any of four distinct bodily fluids in a person known as humours or humours directly influences their temperament and health. The four humours of Hippocratic medicine are black bile, Greek, mu lambda alpha iota nu alpha chi omicron lambda, melena chol, yellow bile, Greek, kappa tau rho iota nu eta chi omicron lambda, ketronite chol, phlegm, Greek, phi lambda gamma mu alpha, phlegma, and blood, Greek, alpha mu alpha, hyma, and each corresponds to one of the traditional four temperaments. A humour is also referred to as a cambium, pl cambia or cambiums. The humoralist system of medicine was highly individualistic, for all patients were said to have their own unique humoral composition. Moreover, it resembled a holistic approach to medicine as the link between mental and physical processes were emphasized by this framework. From Hippocrates onward, the humoral theory was adopted by Greek, Roman, and Islamic physicians, and became the most commonly held view of the human body among European physicians until the advent of modern medical research in the 19th century. The concept has not been used in medicine since then. 4 humours. The theory holds that the human body is filled with 4 basic substances, called humours, which are in balance when a person is healthy. Diseases and disabilities supposedly resulted from an excess or deficit of one of these 4 humours. Disease could also be the result of the corruption of one or more of the humours, which could be caused by environmental circumstances, dietary changes, or many other factors. These deficits were thought to be caused by vapors inhaled or absorbed by the body. The 4 humours are black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood. These terms only partly correspond to the modern medical terminology, in which there is no distinction between black and yellow bile, and in which phlegm has a very different meaning. These humours may have their roots in the appearance of a blood sedimentation test made in open air, which exhibits a dark clot at the bottom, black bile, a layer of unclotted erythrocytes, blood, a layer of white blood cells, phlegm, and a layer of clear yellow serum, yellow bile. It was believed that these were the basic substances from which all liquids in the body were made. Greeks and Romans, and the later Muslim and Western European medical establishments that adopted and adapted classical medical philosophy, believed that each of these humours would wax and wane in the body, depending on diet and activity. When a patient was suffering from a surplus or imbalance of one of these 4 fluids, then said patient's personality and/or physical health could be negatively affected. This theory was closely related to the theory of the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air, earth predominantly present in the black bile, fire in the yellow bile, water in the phlegm, and all 4 elements present in the blood. Paired qualities were associated with each humour and its season. The word humour is a translation of Greek chi upsilon mu, chymos, literally juice or sap, metaphorically flavor. At around the same time, ancient Indian Ayurveda medicine had developed a theory of 3 humours, which they linked with the 5 Hindu elements. Blood. The blood was believed to be produced exclusively by the liver 103-105. Yellow bile. Excess of yellow bile was thought to produce aggression, and excess anger reciprocally gave rise to liver derangement and imbalances in the humours. Black bile. The word melancholy derives from Greek mu lambda alpha iota nu alpha chi omicron lambda, melena choli, meaning black bile, from the belief that an excess of black bile caused depression. Phlegm. Phlegm was thought to be associated with apathetic behavior, as preserved in the word phlegmatic/flgmatic/. The phlegm of humorism is far from the same thing as phlegm as it is defined today. Nobel laureate Charles Richet MD, when describing humorism's phlegm or pituitary secretion in 1910, asked rhetorically, "This strange liquid, which is the cause of tumors, of chlorosis, of rheumatism, and cachychemia. Where is it? Who will ever see it? Who has ever seen it? What can we say of this fanciful classification of humours into 4 groups, of which 2 are absolutely imaginary? History. Although advances in cellular pathology and chemistry discredited humoralism by the 19th century, the theory had dominated Western medical thinking for more than 2,000 years. Only in some instances did the theory of humoralism wane into obscurity. One such instance occurred in the 6th and 7th centuries in the Byzantine Empire, when traditional secular Greek culture gave way to Christian influences. Though the use of humoralist medicine continued during this time, its influence was diminished in favor of religion. The revival of Greek humoralism, owing in part to changing social and economic factors, did not begin until the early 9th century. Use of the practice in modern times is pseudoscience. Origins. The concept of 4 humours may have origins in ancient Egyptian medicine or Mesopotamia, though it was not systemized until ancient Greek thinkers around 400 BC directly linked it with the popular theory of the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, and air. Empedocles. Robin Farias, 1921, a Swedish physician who devised the erythrocyte sedimentation rate, suggested that the 4 humours were based upon the observation of blood clotting in a transparent container. When blood is drawn in a glass container and left undisturbed for about an hour, 4 different layers can be seen. A dark clot forms at the bottom, the black bile. Above the clot is a layer of red blood cells, the blood. Above this is a whitish layer of white blood cells, the phlegm. The top layer is clear yellow serum, the yellow bile. Greek medicine. Hippocrates is the one usually credited with applying this idea to medicine. One of the treatises attributed to Hippocrates, On the Nature of Man, describes the theory as follows. The human body contains blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. These are the things that make up its constitution and cause its pains and health. Health is primarily that state in which these constituent substances are in the correct proportion to each other, both in strength and quantity, and are well mixed. Pain occurs when one of the substances presents either a deficiency or an excess, or is separated in the body and not mixed with others. Although the theory of the 4 humours does appear in some Hippocratic texts, some Hippocratic writers only accepted the existence of 2 humours, while some even refrained from discussing the humoral theory at all. Humoralism, or the doctrine of the 4 temperaments, as a medical theory retained its popularity for centuries largely through the influence of the writings of Galen, 129–201 AD, and was decisively displaced only in 1858 by Rudolf Virchow's newly published Theories of Cellular Pathology. While Galen thought that humours were formed in the body, rather than ingested, he believed that different foods had varying potential to be acted upon by the body to produce different humours. Warm foods, for example, tended to produce yellow bile, while cold foods tended to produce phlegm. Seasons of the year, periods of life, geographic regions, and occupations also influenced the nature of the humours formed. The imbalance of humors, or dyscrasia, was thought to be the direct cause of all diseases. Health was associated with a balance of humors, or eucrasia. The qualities of the humors, in turn, influenced the nature of the diseases they caused. Yellow bile caused warm diseases and phlegm caused cold diseases. On the temperaments, Galen further emphasized the importance of the qualities. An ideal temperament involved a balanced mixture of the 4 qualities. Galen identified 4 temperaments in which one of the qualities, warm, cold, moist or dry, predominated, and 4 more in which a combination of 2, warm and moist, warm and dry, cold and dry or cold and moist, dominated. These last 4, named for the humours with which they were associated, that is, sanguine, choleric, melancholic and phlegmatic, eventually became better known than the others. While the term temperament came to refer just to psychological dispositions, Galen used it to refer to bodily dispositions, which determined a person's susceptibility to particular diseases as well as behavioral and emotional inclinations. Islamic medicine. Medieval medical tradition in the Golden Age of Islam adopted the theory of humorism from Greco-Roman medicine, notably via the Persian polymath Avicenna's The Canon of Medicine. Influence and legacy. Medicine. Typically 18th century practices such as bleeding a sick person or applying hot cups to a person were, in fact, based on the humoral theory of imbalances of fluids, blood and bile in those cases. Ben Jonson wrote humor plays, where types were based on their humoral complexion. Methods of treatment like bloodletting, emetics, and purges were aimed at expelling a surfeit of a humor. Other methods used herbs and foods associated with a particular humor to counter symptoms of disease. For instance, people who had a fever and were sweating were considered hot and wet and therefore given substances associated with cold and dry. Paracelsus further developed the idea that beneficial medical substances could be found in herbs, minerals, and various alchemical combinations thereof. These beliefs were the foundation of mainstream Western medicine well into the 1800s. Central to the treatment of unbalanced humors was the use of herbs. Specific herbs were used to treat all ailments simple, common, and complex etc., from an uncomplicated upper respiratory infection to the plague. For example, chamomile was used to decrease heat, and lower excessive bile humor. Also, arsenic was used in a poultice bag to draw out the excess humor, that led to symptoms of the plague. Philip Moore, who wrote On the Hope of Health, and Edwards, who wrote treatise concerning the plague discuss how these herbs are helpful in curing physical disease. They also discuss the importance of maintaining an herb garden. Apophlegmatisms, in pre-modern medicine, were medications chewed in order to draw away phlegm and humors. The Unani school of medicine, practiced in Perso-Arabic countries, and in India and Pakistan, is based on Galenic and Avicennian medicine in its emphasis on the four humors as a fundamental part of the methodologic paradigm. There are still remnants of the theory of the four humors in the current medical language. For example, modern medicine refers to humoral immunity or humoral regulation when describing substances such as hormones and antibodies that circulate throughout the body. It also uses the term blood dyscrasia to refer to any blood disease or abnormality. The associated food classification survives in adjectives that are still used for food, as when some spices are described as hot, and some wines as dry. When the chili pepper was first introduced to Europe in the 16th century, dietitians disputed whether it was hot or cold. Culture. Theophrastus and others developed a set of characters based on the humors. Those with too much blood were sanguine. Those with too much phlegm were phlegmatic. Those with too much yellow bile were choleric, and those with too much black bile were melancholic. The idea of human personality based on humors contributed to the character comedies of Menander and, later, Plautus. Through the neoclassical revival in Europe, the humor theory dominated medical practice, and the theory of humoral types made periodic appearances in drama. Because people believed that the quantity of humors in the body could not be replenished, there were folk medical beliefs that the loss of fluids was a form of death. The humors can be found in Elizabethan works, such as in Taming of the Shrew, in which the character Petruchio pretends to be irritable and angry to show Katrina what it is like being around a disagreeable person. He yells at the servants for serving mutton, a choleric food, to two people who are already choleric. Foods in Elizabethan times were all believed to have an affinity with one of these four humors. A person showing signs of phlegmatism might have been served wine, a choleric drink, and the direct opposite humor to phlegmatic, to balance this. The concept of balance in health, a key feature in the humoralist theory, is still prevalent in modern Western culture. The dietary guidelines put forth by the United States Department of Agriculture recommend finding a balance between food and physical activity. The contemporary view of a healthy lifestyle in Western culture emphasizes the historically influential concept of balance.
Please subscribe and thanks for watching.